Hello everyone, my name is Olashpo, and welcome to afriQatlantic. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about history, the hidden backstory of history. Today, we're going to be talking about Africans and the World War, and we're going to be talking about a particularly unique story, an unknown story, a largely unknown story, of a unique African and his role in the World War. It's good because at times like this, in the month of November, the world chooses it as a Remembrance Month. In fact, at 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, people take time to pause to remember the dead of the two world wars. I was in Abuja in Nigeria recently, and I was approached by two smiling ladies who wanted to sell me a poppy for my lapel. Yes, poppies. We sell poppies on Remembrance Month. You know, that symbolic flower that was first probably referenced in Belgium in the Flanders region, because it was found around the graves of the fallen of the First World War. It has now become symbolic of remembrance all over the world. Our poppy now has green round leaves, but it still looks very much like a poppy, and it does give you time to remember. But the flower draws us all together, doesn't it, in remembrance of what happened during that defining moment in world history that created today's world order as we know it. So whether you're on the European side of the Atlantic or on the African side of the Atlantic, or indeed in the Americas, we all are brought together this month in remembrance. Remembrance of the human tragedy that British subjects decided that they had to die for the empire as part of their freedom journey to prove the equality of the races, and possibly at the end of the war in the hope that freedom from colonial rule would come. Nigerians, as you will find, donated over £850,000 voluntarily to the war effort. In today's money, that would be something around £35 million. A huge contribution in 1945. About 250 Africans fought for the empire, at least 120,000 of those from Nigeria itself. Many of them are now part of our diaspora story, leaving either children or themselves in far-flung parts of the world. And we love those stories here on afriQatlantic podcast. The diaspora stories that are rooted in the history that enrich our influence and the influence that the world has had on Africa. So I'm going to talk briefly about, yes, an unknown hero. It's a bit cliche, but I promise you, this is a really heroic story. His name is August Agbola O'Browne, and that's Brown with an E at the end of it. He is a symbol of the past and a model for the future. An immigration story in a part of the world that is often challenged by, xenophobia. Only 10 years ago, there was backlash against immigrants in Central Europe, and Poland wasn't left out. But I wonder if they chose to pause to remember the contributions of Africa to Poland's liberation. Yes, he became a hero of the Warsaw Uprising. Warsaw, the capital of Poland till today. But let's go backwards. Agbola was born in Lagos in July of 1895, which automatically made him a British citizen, unlike if he was born in any part of the protectorate of the empire. So being born in Lagos, the colony, was a great advantage because he was automatically a British citizen, which the others were not. They were British subjects, which didn't give you the same rights. And it shows up later in his story. So he went to Poland in 1922. Now, in 1922, Lagos, it was a pretty decent place to be if you were a young African, fairly educated, and you had an ability in music, which, as the story shows, he did. So we'll probably never know why he chose to, as we say now, japa, why he chose to leave. But leave he did, and to Poland, of all places, he went, where he became a celebrated jazz percussionist, a jazz musician of note. Everybody who came across him, and the records show it, found him to be handsome, dashing, charismatic, and always impeccably turned out. True Lagos boy. Brown married twice in his lifetime, and both times to Polish women. And he had 4 children in all. And the first marriage happened in 1925. Not long after he got there, you'll find. In fact, a newspaper clipping of his first marriage was celebratory, even though muted, of the union. And the caption goes like this, and I'll read it. A black and white marriage that took place in Krakow, where an authentic Negro, Mr. August Brown, married an authentic Polish woman, Miss Zofia Piknau. The exotic wedding gathered crowds in the church. So certainly a man living up to Lagos in every step of the way. A man who wanted to really stand out. He would later marry another British citizen, but we'll come to that. So when the war broke out, say 1939, Brown did the most astonishing thing. He sent his wife and children to go and live in his country of citizenship, Britain. And he chose to stay, which is because he had every right to go to Britain. Not that he wouldn't have joined the war there, but he had every right to go. And he chose to fight to liberate his adopted country and his adopted city, Warsaw, which was being closely guarded and soon to be occupied by the Germans, the Nazi Germans. In fact, again, I'll refer to the archives where we'll see the activity of Brown and the troops that he fought under. He had earned a code name called Ali. As an insurrectionist, you had to have a code name. And he fought for what was called the Home Army, which is another name for the Polish underground, the resistance army. And they attacked the German occupying forces in August of 1944. And they swiftly gained control of the city from the Germans, which must have been a unique feat. But the Germans quickly sent reinforcements, and then they were joined by the Soviet army, and they clearly overpowered the resistance army, only for the Polish to surrender on the 2nd of October after 63 days of determined resistance. But the fallout was that 200,000 civilians died, and 16,000 Polish fighters also died. Agbola did yet another astonishing thing. He survived, along with only 6% of the pre-war citizenship of the town of Warsaw. And that showed the remarkable feat of a man that was so strange to have married a Polish lady, but wasn't at that time strange enough to have been mentioned in the press as having fought for his adopted country. It took 60 years before we could get any information about the activities of Agbola. And the credit goes, I'll give the credit at the end of this, but to the work of a Harvard-trained professor. There is a monument, though, erected, a 1.2 meter high monument erected in his name as part of the Freedom and Peace Movement Foundation's work that was unveiled in 2019. And I love it because at the top of the monument is inscribed a befitting epitaph. And it's written in both Polish and English for all to see. In honor of August Agbola O'Browne, also known as Ali, a jazz musician and a participant in the Warsaw Uprising of African origin. Poland was the country he chose to live in. Now, I'm sure he'd be proud of that, even though it was late in coming to the surface. Yes, it is a befitting epitaph for a true Atlantic African. We should take time to remember the fallen Africans who are now part of our diaspora story. Well, the research credit on August Agbola O'Browne, I must refer to Nicholas Boston, the Associate Professor of Media Studies at the City University of New York, Lehman College, and his assistants in Poland for unearthing this and continuing to dig deeper into Agbola's past so that we can presently know about what he has brought into the future that he left behind. Agbola died on the 7th of September, 1976, at the ripe age of 81 years, and is buried in Hampstead, in London, in the United Kingdom. And now we come to my fun part. Not that any part of this podcast is not fun, but I'm bringing you my read of the episode. And I'm recommending to you in this episode a fantastic book, which I find totally earth-shaking in its confirmation of what has long been known as the belief of many of the more astute historians, and the negrophobic have long sought to deny. They came before Columbus, the African presence in ancient America, a book by Ivan van Sertima, published by Random House. You can get it on the normal book outlets that you're used to, both online and offline. But it's a great read. And in the book, Professor Sertima chooses to investigate what he said he stumbled on, which was the work of another scholar, Professor Leo Werner. And that work was titled Africa and the Discovery of America. And Professor Werner had stumbled on linguistic evidence of influence of African language in some medieval Mexican and South American languages long before the European contact in the late 1400s and the voyage of Christopher Columbus. And throughout the book, he continues to investigate the theory left behind by Werner and expound on it. And he finds that he found the generation of work that was unearthed to show a large number of Negroid art and artifacts of clay, gold, copper, and other things sculpted long before the Columbian arrival. And the sheer Negroness could not be wished away or explained away. In fact, the depiction of these forebears left a huge amount of Negroness, coloration of images with full lips, scarification, markings, beards, and kinky hair with, as he says, generously fleshed noses, just like mine. And it was difficult to explain it away. And I don't want to spoil the book for you, but throughout the journey of his discovery, and he likens his work to that of a detective, he goes into finding more and more information that shows pre-medieval America had Africans present on that continent long before either Columbus or the slave trade and the raids of African villages. Now, it's a happy story and probably a happy way to end because it confirms what many of the more enlightened and astute historians have long said, and many of the negrophobic deniers have chosen to ignore. And so the more we find of these stories, and it shows that there are very few continents anywhere in the world where there hasn't been an African diaspora able and present. And so it shows our work is not done, even if this episode is done. Our work continues to explore the diasporic effect of Africa and the Atlantic. So thank you for hanging with us. Don't forget to follow us at Spotify/afriQatlantic or visit my website www.olashukwoshashire.company or visit www.kurama.com. Send us feedback to qpod@kurama.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, goodbye.